here. Hi, everybody. My name is Margaret Pennard. Welcome to my channel. I'm a historical fiction author, and as you can tell, because I didn't change the layout, I'm going to have someone coming on in just a second for my Good Fight Fridays series. This is a series where I'm bringing authors on to interview about social change in their fiction. And here's a clue. Her book is down in the corner. So welcome, everybody. And without further ado, welcome, Leonor. Hello.
Hi, everyone. So good to be here.
Yes. And so this is part of a series, as I said, and because I have a book coming out November 30th that features sweeping social change. Of course, mine is in the 19th century, so it's a little different than the ones that Leonor is talking about in her fiction, which is contemporary. I thought I'd invite people on to talk about how we address issues that are like really important, really personal in fiction, and how that sort of affects our life, or how our life goes into that and affects us. Because I thought that was a really cool, I don't know, angle to take. So, Leonor Soliz, can you tell us a little bit about what you write and how wonderful it is?
Well, I probably can tell you more about the first part. I write stories that are contemporary, people falling in love, always a happily ever after. That's very important to me. I find a lot of comfort in these kind of stories. And they're feel good, like low conflict. People are always communicating. They are always like doing their best. They're trying to be good people, even if they make mistakes, even if they have mistaken beliefs about the world, maybe sometimes they are trying to be good, and so I make them very low conflict. I want them to be cozy, like a hug.
Yay! I like that. I like that description. You've also got a name for the series that you were working on, which currently has 3 books, and the 4th is about to come out. So what's your name for the series?
The series is called Cozy Latina Billionaires. I wanted everyone to kind of get an idea just from the title what they were going to find. And it's called that way because it's cozy. Like I said, it's very feel good, low conflict, Latina, because all books and most characters are Latina like myself, and billionaires because they are all billionaires. It is in a world of wealth.
Okay. And so I have to ask about that because
Yes.
coming from the social change angle, like I'm talking about usually working class folks who are scrabbling to get a handle on stability in their lives. So I'm usually against the billionaire crowd. But why did you take that angle first?
Yes, I love this question so much because I don't like billionaires either. I truly believe in real life, billionaires shouldn't exist. Okay.
You're
And
here.
so,
Preach.
like, I don't believe any billionaire can be a good person because that is a billionaire because they are profiting of other people's labor. And so, no, I don't want billionaires in the real world. So I love that question because it's like calling me to action. Why would I romanticize that? And actually, I use it as a point of conflict or a point of distinction for the series, because there were certain stories when I started planning the series. There were a couple of stories that I wanted to tell, especially one, which is the story coming out, Yours for Good, on November 12th, that the character needed to be a billionaire for the conflict to occur. And so as I planned the series, I was like, you know what? I'm going to make them all billionaires. That's kind of something that people are interested in reading about sometimes. And so I also needed to make them like my type of billionaires. Like I couldn't,
Yes.
you
Caveat. Very important.
right? One of my choices was if I'm gonna make them billionaires, because there are at least 2 stories where I'm really interested in talking about money. At least I'm gonna make them the kind of billionaires I wish I saw. And so there is, of course, a fantasy element in that I can't make them good people and billionaires if I believe billionaires shouldn't exist. I've had to be very like creative about that. It's all transgenerational wealth that they've inherited, and what I've done is have those conversations on page. Why they see themselves as having a responsibility with their privilege, and how they're using this money as a way to try and actually affect change. And so every book, there is a conversation about the privilege of money and the privilege of having that kind of access and wealth and power that comes with it. So in a way, it is billionaire books, but not the standard billionaire books,
Right.
because I was very purposeful about the type of billionaires they were going to be. And so in every book, there is a little bit of that conversation.
Excellent. Yes. So a lot of what I talk about in terms of nonfiction books centers on equality and stuff when I review books and have discussions. And like climate crisis books put it really well. I just read one that had the definition of good freedom and bad freedom. And it was bad freedom is the current capitalist driven American model that is determined by stressing out the environment with the biggest carbon footprint you possibly can. And I'm like, that is exactly what's wrong with it, because it's just, it's indulgent and it's ignorant and it's entitled. And so, yeah, trying to be responsible, discussing the privilege, like that is the opposite of all that. So, okay, I will accept the billionaire. Okay, all right, past that. I'm glad. So, like, opening question, you gave us a little bit of the feeling of the book. Like, there's HEAs, there's low conflict, there is open door spiciness. So there's definitely sexy goings on in these romances, which is great. What are your novels about? What are the conflicts about? What do you see as like your favorite thing that you like to portray on the page, and why?
I love character development. That to me is the yumminess of a book, to see where someone started and where they ended. And so one of the ways in which I keep them low conflict is by not having them have a lot of internal conflict with who they are or their identities.
Okay.
Still, though, as everyone, they have things that they need to learn or things that they want to work through. And that is what directs the character arc, you know? And so my books are about good people trying to be good, trying to communicate, trying, to be in relationships that are purposeful. And the conflict comes from, what all of our conflict comes, like, when we when your needs are different than mine, that there's going to be conflict. When my past doesn't allow me to see you clearly, that's going to be conflict. When I have to experience things in the world that have put barriers to my life, that is also conflict. So these are the things that I weave into my books. And at the end of the day, it's all about what is this world doing to the characters and how are they going to overcome it together to get to where they want to be, and also to create a relationship that is going to be healthy and loving, with that happily ever after.
I love that. Okay, so here's what may make it different from some other romances is, as you say, there are good people. They don't have a lot of conflict with their identity. So they're not starting from zero, and that isn't the primary conflict. Where I think some of my fiction is definitely people trying to come to grips with their identity and who they are in the world. I think yours is more about knowing who they are, but like trying to fit in with others in a way that brings out the best in them. And I love that. That's really good.
Yes.
Let's see. I was going to ask this at the top and I forgot. So here's a question that I should have been asking everybody in the series. What do you think of awareness raising readathons? So we've just finished Hispanic Heritage Month. And I definitely read some books that were like more geared towards that. It's a big thing on YouTube in terms of like highlighting and putting those books on the TBR depending on the month and rotating them out. Of course, we read them all the time, but it's fun to discuss things together at one time because maybe you get more in depth about it. And we have some people in the chat who definitely do that. I know my friend Leslie likes to focus on an author for a month and read like 3 or 4 of their works so she can sort of get into them more. We've also got Devin. I'll just say hello for some folks saying hello in the chat. And Anita, hello, hello. And Leslie was very excited for this interview. So glad she's here. And Devin says, blah, ha, ha, for the acceptance of Yeah, funny. So what do you think about readathons and what role they have to play?
I have conflicted emotions. I
Mm,
think that, as so often happens, it's going to really depend on the intention that the person puts and the purposefulness with which the person interacts. Because if it is about filling up your TBR with a quote to say that you did it, I don't know how much that's doing. Like, if it's supposed to raise awareness, it is supposed to raise awareness, right? Like, you need to interact with the content, and you need to interact with the source material in a way that is going to be uh, more purposeful and intentional, you know.
mhm.
And so I think they're good in that they help start conversations. If we didn't have them, it leaves a lot of people alone to try and sift through the billions of books that exist, right? Um, I don't know that we have enough, you know, so who gets chosen? I don't know why we have a Latino Heritage Month and we don't have, you know, a proper, I don't know, any other identity, you know, like Inuit Heritage Month in Canada. I'm like,
Right.
who gets chosen? Is it about proportion, the number of people that I'm not sure how we single out identities or experiences. And if we didn't have them, I don't know that we are at a place as a society where um, everyone is thinking about the importance of diversifying the content we're consuming. So I
Mhm.
appreciate that they're getting a conversation started, you know, and that's not going to be enough unless the people getting involved are also going to be intentional about what it means.
Mm.
Why are they doing it? Are they doing it because it's fashion, because it's like, you know, the
Yeah.
trend, or are they doing it because, oh yes, I recognize that how I'm participating is going to have an impact in the social consciousness, and so I want to be purposeful about that. It's completely different.
Right. So intentions. So reading, I think, is good for people to see other people are reading and gets the awareness raising. But then, as you pointed out, yeah, of course, the awareness needs to be followed by actions. So that means that you're supporting those authors and helping them get to more readers, or requesting their books at your library, or going to their events, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, and then the causes that they're espousing also get your attention. So if you didn't know about something and you learned about it in a book, um, like maybe it was last year. It doesn't feel like that long ago, but I read We Are Not From Here, which was like a stunning book about kids escaping from Central America and making their way through the border to get to the US for asylum, and what they went through to do that. And I thought, I've always heard harrowing journey, caravans, the way that people characterize it who want you to think about it a certain way, but like the author had really, I'm blanking on her name right now, had really painted it in a way that was like, here's the desperation, here's why, what would you have done in this position, in a way that made it feel really close to home and really personal and just really, really good. So yeah, change what you do. I will
Mhm.
take this time to remind people, if you have questions, please pop them in the live chat and we'll try to answer them during our hour here. How about what types of social change or social movements you've thought to feature? So I've read yours for now, which is the first book. What are you researching for, or what's the most recent one have that you can tell us about that isn't a spoiler?
Well, I think that some of the recurring things that I talk about, they can't be a spoiler because they're in every book in a way, you know.
Okay, good. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So all of my heroines, they are plus size and Latinas.
Yes.
You know, I talk a lot about fat liberation in my books, and I talk about a multicultural world as much as I can. Imbue my world with multiculturality is going to be there, and I do think that those are social movements in as much as uh, having these identities or living in the world in a fat body or living in the world as a racialized person, the existence is political, you know. Just by existing in this way that is othered by certain structures in the world, um, means that there's politics involved.
Mm.
And so that's how I think about it. When I write my plus size heroine, my Latina heroine, when I write my heroes are all diverse sizes. I have them skinny, I have them muscular, I have them plus size, I have them with like, muffin tops. They are different size wise. Some of them are white, some of them are Latino. Um, I'm going to be talking about that bicultural lens, right? And I'm going to be talking about uh, the existence as political and the body as political.
Mm.
I also talk about wealth disparity, right? Like when I'm talking about billionaires, like my next book, right? Yours for Good, coming out now in November. And that is the book that made everyone else a billionaire, basically, because it is based on an old book called Daddy Long Legs. Um,
I grew up with that one.
Right. I grew up with that one too. It was one of the few books I owned. And so I reread it many times. And as an 11-year-old, I did not see the problems. I was like, this is so romantic. This is so sweet. And now, and I've reread it many times. And I think it must have been like 5 years ago that I reread it. And I was like, oh no, I did not see the problems as an 11-year-old. So what if I were to write my own version? And that's what I did.
Wow.
And
You planned the series, you envisioned the series at once.
yes,
Okay. Oh, interesting.
yes. And because I wanted to write this story where the wealth disparity is such a big piece, right? If you're familiar with Daddy Long Legs, it is about a billionaire or millionaire, we don't really know, who has lots of money and basically sends an orphan to university. And the story is mostly told through letters. To show them falling in love through her perspective and through her letters. And there are a lot of power dynamics that are not explored in the original book. There are a lot of like the dependency of the heroine on the hero that is not explored, or what happens with with the wealth imbalance between them,
Yeah.
and the impacts that it has on the relationship. So I said, okay, that's what I'm doing. And in this book, there are a lot of conversations to the point that I was worried about turning off readers because I got so political in the book sometimes, talking about what is charity and like what is the point of caring about this so much if we can't translate it to policy. Without changing policy, there is no real change. And so all of these conversations are in the book, and I'm trying to show how that impacts the heroine and how that impacts the hero. And so the problem of wealth is something also that I've tried really hard to explore in my book. So body size, ethnicity, and wealth distribution.
Short list. One of the things that I noticed as a reader, because we all bring our own issues to the page, is family expectations.
Mm-hmm.
So for now, like a big part of the reason for the fake dating trope is
Yes.
family expectations leaned up against, ambitions that the character has for herself. And so they're directly in opposition, and she's trying to figure out a way to get by and sort of make everyone happy. And so this is how she ends up in a sticky situation. So I relate to that. So I'm sure there's like more things as well that are about, like you said at the beginning, navigating the relationships in a way that like you're still learning how to exist in the world and figure out how to not just make everyone happy, but also meet your own goals. Like
Yes.
be the person you want to be authentically. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh man, you made me think of when you said charity. So for whatever reason, the last 3 books that I've read are Indigenous, so 2 nonfiction and 1 romance. And I've been thinking about these issues and how they interact. And one of the last pieces, actually the podcast that I was listening to, was making the point about a lot of the things that have happened to Native peoples over the years, the decades, the centuries, happened because of white greed and white charity. And I was like, oh man. Okay, so yeah, how the greed works. They stole the land, they, tried to decimate people. But like the charity, people thought they were doing good with the residential schools. So yeah, unless you're trying to translate charity into something that is empowering and, self-sufficient rather than we're still in control and giving you this.
Yes.
You're not helping people. Yeah.
That's right.
That's really good. Um, oh, you're the first romance author that I've had for the series. So, what are the challenges? And I loved this question that you helped come up with. What are the challenges of incorporating social issues into a genre that is usually lighthearted, such as romance? How do you balance that?
Yes. And so in my corner of romance, where I'm trying to write lighthearted stories, right? The challenge is, how do I balance the reality of living in an unjust world with, let's feel still kind of cozy, right?
Right, to escape. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Like, how do I keep the stakes low when these conversations are happening? And so for me, that really has to do with where the conflict happens. And so, for example, being a plus size person, it's a journey to get to a place where I feel comfortable in my body, right? I didn't feel comfortable in my body for a long time. That is a journey I went on very purposefully. And now I'm happy to say, like, oh, yeah, I'm comfy, I'm good. I don't judge myself. But the world does not treat me that way, right? And where do I place that conflict? That conflict is going to be when a character is trying to find a dress, like they don't sell dresses in your size. So what are you going to do? But that's conflict, right?
Yeah.
How do I show it and how do I keep it lighthearted? Is that character will be like, and if that's not my problem. That is their problem for not being inclusive. I'm not taking it in as an issue. And so I don't have to go through the harrowing journey of being like, oh my God, what do I feel shame about this? Right. Because the world has taught me to feel ashamed of not finding a dress my size, The same with ethnicity. Like, um, being a racialized person, it's a newer experience for me in a way because I grew up in Latin America. I wasn't racialized there the way that I was once I moved to Canada, and I was placed into all of these boxes that I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Why am I being placed this way? And so, in the same way, my characters might face microaggressions from other people, either because of their size or their ethnicity, their accent, whatever reason. Um, but they're not internalizing it. And so I don't have to go to a very dark place with them
Yeah.
because they already did that work, you know? There is a sense of empowerment in how my characters handle all of that I think also helps. Um, I very much think that part of the reason why I write is because I'm trying to write the world that I want to see.
Mhm.
And so it makes it easier to say these things happen, these things exist, but I can trust the character, the person that I'm in, to say, I've already done this work. This does not affect me the same way anymore. But the conflict is still there.
Mm. But okay, so I see that you do that to make it low stakes and maybe the reader feels more comfortable, but also the reader who is not yet there also feels supported to get there because they see a model.
I
That's
hope so. Yes,
good.
I
Yeah.
hope so. That's my vision, Like, I sometimes think how different my journey to fat acceptance or my journey with learning what colorism or racialization looks like, how different would that be if I had been able to explore that in the safe container of a book that I knew wasn't going to hurt me?
Yeah.
If I had read that story, if Daddy Long Legs, when I read it at 11 and at 12, had not taught me something kind of iffy about power dynamics,
Yeah.
it instead had taught me, look, you have a right to want to be an equal to your partner. How different would it have been when I was a young person exploring my own relationships, right? And so part of my hope with my books is that I'm giving that safe container and that mirror where you can explore and see what life might be like if you've gotten there, or if you have an end goal.
Oh my gosh. Equality in relationships? What is this? I haven't heard of this before. What's that? Her. Oh man, fantasy indeed. All right. I've got some more questions. We're about halfway. I see one from Devin. So let's bring up Devin's question. Are your characters in their mid to late 20s when they're still trying to find themselves while dealing with the societal norm, especially with family expectations? What do you see as the backstory for where they arrive, where they are when you talk about them?
So I think every single book that I've written has at least one mention of therapy. So
Yay!
part of my yes, part of how I handle that work for them is that they've already started. They've started a long time ago.
Mm,
And so I do write them in late 20s, early 30s. I think my youngest character at the start of the book is 26. Uh, and my oldest character, I think, is 32, 33. So that's kind of the range
okay.
that I write. I see that age as an age where you're still kind of growing roots and getting truly settled into your authenticity. And I also think it's a time when you hopefully have a lot more access and power and agency. You're not necessarily dependent on a student loan or on parents or, you know, hopefully you've found a place where you've landed. And so I think that that's the place where you're also probably going to start using the things that you've learned in your life to make those relationships that are good for you happen.
Mm,
Um, so that's how I envision my characters and why I choose that age as well, you know?
gotcha. All right. Um, let's see. How do you manage boundaries between injustice you're researching or, envisioning for your stories and your own life, or does it spill back and forth? So,
I'm
for
sorry.
example,
I'm not sure I understand the question.
sure. So when I read about what I'm researching, it's historical. So I'm reading about abolition, but I'm still getting upset about what people thought when they were comparing slaves' fortunes in the US to laborers' fortunes in England and which one was worse and why they were discounting the struggles of one because of the other. Like that still gets me fired up. And so that's why I'm writing about it. But do you have something where like you're fired up about the issue, but you don't want to write about it because it's too close, or you put it in a book because, well, I guess you've gone through some of the things that you put in the books, but are there other issues where you're like, I advocate for this, but not in a book because it's not cozy or that sort of thing?
Yes, yes. And so there are things that are to me like not as they don't fire me up, but I still have chosen not to do it. Like, for example, my partner is South Asian, and I would love to write a story between a Latina woman and a South Asian man, because that's what I know. But proximity does not equal, identity or knowledge, and so I've chosen not to go there because I don't want to write his experience, right? So it can be simple like that. But the things that fire me up, like I would love to write more trans characters. I would love to write more gender diverse characters in any capacity, but also people who need mobility aids or other sorts of accommodations, any kind of chronic illness.
Yeah.
These accessibility and accommodations for people with diverse needs and the basic human need of respecting someone's identity and journey, that I get fired up about. And I only try to write within my identities. And so I choose not to go there yet. I think that I could do it one day when I have the resources to pay for interviews, when I have the resources to pay for beta readers and make that fair for them.
Right.
And even then, maybe I won't do it because I think that there is an argument to be made about letting them write their stories and then amplifying them and opening the table
Mm,
for people to tell their own stories. And so these are issues that I am very passionate about, and I'm not going to write into my stories. So I write about characters being bi and pan because that's part of my identity. I write characters who are plus size because I live that and breathe that every day. Um, the same with my ethnicity. And so, yes, I will write that to my heart's content. These other identities, as much as I'm passionate about being as much of an ally as I can, I will have that diversity within the characters that are part of the environment because I
right.
want my
Right.
world to be diverse. But I will not write those stories in particular out of respect for that.
Great answer.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, I usually ask a question about how writer wants readers to feel at the end, but you said like a hug, so we've already got there. I do feel like,
Yes.
but actually, yours for now made me cry. And I don't know if you can tell at which part I cried. Can you guess?
I'm gonna guess it's the part where I cried. There is one part that I cried, and so I'm totally projecting and thinking that maybe that's the part. The dad's letter.
Yeah,
Yes!
totally, totally. So that takes and so it's not a spoiler, like just to make it more general. It's such an incredible payoff and it's so emotionally engaging because I think because it's taking something that a reader like me would see as a stereotype for the community, which was the character's expectation that the family would be this like typical gender roles and the man wants this and the mom wants this, and then turning it on their head and saying like we accept you as you are, and it's just so
I know. I think because of the types of books that I write, I don't usually cry while writing.
beautiful.
Okay, I get emotional. I feel everything my characters are feeling, but don't usually write things that are gonna take me there. But I cried so hard writing that letter. Um, yes, I think I put a lot of Lena, the main character. She is a character that has a lot of me, and including that letter. That was a mashup of things that I wish I had heard, and so it touched me very deeply to just write it, to give her that, um, because yeah, like I that book, I both had some of the what is the word in English, the stereotypical machismo that we expect from a lot of people in the culture, and it's also my experience with machismo, like
Mm.
the antagonist, right, Tio Miguel, who's he's based on an uncle of mine. Like he is in my head, he's real. He sounds just like my uncle. And so writing him had a lot of that own experiences coming up for me. And I was able to put that in Lina. But I also wrote this other version of Latina family with Gabe's parents and Gabe's family
Yeah.
that was more about like these are the types of family that can also exist, and the types of family that I hope I'm creating and that I want to see more of, that is also possible. I wanted that contrast as part of the book.
Yeah.
But you're not the only one who's told me that they cried when reading that letter.
Yeah. Excellent. Excellent. How about reader response? So I don't know how much you interact with readers. You did mention book clubs before when we were talking a little bit. So like, how do readers respond to the social issues
Mhm.
in particular?
I interact a lot with readers. I love it. It's one of my favorite parts of writing is hearing what readers have to say. And so try I made a point of going to conventions, the Stimulate Con in Anaheim. I
Uh,
went last year and I went this year, and it was so special. Like there were a few moments that I still think about today as my reason to write. A couple of readers that cried meeting me because my books meant something to them, and someone I really enjoy. I'm not gonna say her name out of privacy because I don't have her permission to say this, but she kept calling me her unicorn because I was writing both Latina and plus size.
yeah.
I have an intersectional
Yeah.
identity as part of my brand, right? And I think that means a lot to people, right? Like seeing yourself represented means a lot. When I read about an identity that is not mine, I have I create a special connection with that identity, right? Or I learn about seeing the world or normalize it. And when it is my own identity, it's like almost magical.
Yeah.
And that's what I keep hearing from readers when they see themselves. I'll get DMs and being like, I had never read a book where I saw myself.
Yeah.
This character looks like me, you know. This is my uncle too. I grew up with this machismo in my house. Um, it's my favorite. It's absolutely my favorite.
Awesome. I want to hear from readers too. So if you've read my books and you're out there, tell Nudge, nudge. That's just my little nudge for people. Um, Devin says, I always get giddy when I see myself in books. Yeah. So I mean, I read lots of books. I'm an eclectic reader. I read lots of types of books. Recently, I was like getting super nerdy and nostalgic over the fact that someone had AOL chat rooms in a book. And that was like part of my teenage growing up experience. And I was like, oh my God, no one has
Yes.
ever put that in a book before because it's so long ago. So I can imagine that seeing someone who looks like you and the identity is close and shares like, again, core sort of growing up values is like eons above AOL chat rooms and experience, you know?
Yes.
So what would you say to writers who don't share those identities? We're in the I don't know, the non-hyphenated culture as white authors, and we're trying to support diverse voices and telling people to diversify the reading list. And I think not taking up voices that are not ours, not crowding out the spaces, supporting other authors with space and room to talk and stuff is part of it. What else is on your wish list for like things that you wish people who have all the contracts and all the time and all the marketing budget would do for others in the publishing industry?
I would I would like to see more advocacy to create that space at the table. You
Mm.
know, I had a conversation with a really good friend last weekend where she was saying if someone is doing a good job at researching, an identity that is not theirs, why shouldn't they write it? And I said, It's not about that. Like, I don't have a problem with that. If you're doing a good job of researching and being respectful and doing all of the steps, that's not the problem. The problem is when that takes away from the people who are trying to tell their own stories, right?
Mhm.
So that's kind of where my mind goes. The people who have the attention, who have the access to the people making their choices, could they advocate to diversify, maybe that is the publishing industry version of changing policy.
Mm.
And that's going to happen both in terms of other authors that have access advocating for diversification, and it also falls on readers, right? For us as reader and any reader to be mindful about how we're consuming stories and books and basically voting with our pockets.
Mhm.
It is also an intentional choice because the way that distribution happens right now in the publishing industry means that we're not gonna get offered diversity the same way as we get offered hegemonic stories,
Yeah.
right? And so there is a purposefulness that has to happen there, where I purposefully look for
Mm.
that. I interact with content wherever I consume my videos so that I'm telling the algorithm, give me more diversity.
Yeah. Yeah.
It means going for the lists and looking at these stories and reading them and being purposeful about that. I talk a lot about purposefulness, right? Like that's the point where your intention matches your action.
Mhm.
And I think we can do that at many levels.
Yes. Yes. Great answer. So like when I'm thinking, I mean, I know bits and pieces about like distribution and marketing and sort of how I've been an author, I've been a publisher, I've been a bookseller, I've been like lots of different places in this industry, but like the behind the doors of traditional publishing is not anywhere I've been. So like I know some of the pictures, but parts of the picture, but not the whole picture. And some of it is just crazy when you think about like insider deals and what people have as advantages and no one knows about. So when you think about, well, they're doing so well, and I'm like, yeah, because they started on the 90-yard line or whatever the sports metaphor is. I don't know. But yeah, like it's frustrating. So this is why I sometimes don't have um the bandwidth, or like I give side eye when I see in my neck of the woods the huge booktubers who are going over the same top titles, or going to do a TBR for a readathon, and like it's the same title that's everywhere, and I'm like, but you could do so much more. Like, so yeah. Oh, what I can do in my little corner. Let's see.
Yes, that's all we can do.
We have a Nicole. Hello. Devin says it never hurts to ask. Sensitivity readers are amazing. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, Devin says it was Yahoo Chats for me. Oh my gosh.
Yes, I did. I'm trying to remember which one. I didn't do AOL because of where I lived. We didn't have AOL.
You
Uh,
didn't get those CDs in the mail, like direct advertising dollars? No, because that's the US policy. Yeah.
yes, IRC. I think it's called IRC chats. And there was the one with a Q. I'm trying to remember.
ICQ.
ICQ.
Me
Yes,
too. Yeah.
yes,
Definitely did that too.
that one I did. Yes.
Oh man, that's funny. A little further back when we were talking about equality, Leslie said equality in a relationship is a tall order. I'm definitely going to need to pick up your books. Yes, you will. There was a thing I was going to say next week, the audiobook. Did you want to say anything about the audiobook, the new format? Like excited about the process?
I am so excited. Ever since I started publishing, I wanted to do audiobooks at some point. As an indie, your resources are different, right? And I already knew that producing audiobooks could be very expensive for a starting author, right? And so I always thought, you know what, I'm one as soon as I can, I'm gonna do it, or I'm gonna do some sort of like Kickstarter or something. But eventually, I will have my books in audio. I wanted that because I believe in accessibility, and audiobooks are accessible for people of all sorts of needs.
Right.
To just diversify uh, all of that, all of the ways to access the story. And then one day, Tantor knocked at my door and was like, "Hey, can we talk about buying the rights for it?" And I mean, probably shouldn't say this out loud, but like I jumped at the opportunity. I was like,
You
"Yes."
calmly responded in a very
Yeah, I calmly thought
manner.
about it for a long time, really weighed the pros and cons,
Oh,
you know. And I'm really, really excited about it. So it's coming out on Tuesday.
oh my
It
god.
is available for pre-order in many stores. It is distributed widely, so it's going to be available. I've had a lot of readers send me screenshots of them asking for the book, the audiobook in their library.
Oh, yes.
I've had people pre-saving it on Spotify. It is also available for pre-order in several retailers. So, oh my gosh, I am so excited. I mostly am active on Instagram. So if any of you are on Instagram, go make sure to keep track of things of my Instagram profile, because next week I'm doing a giveaway for an audiobook copy. So yes, because I need to celebrate it too. And if you like art, I made a spicy art of
Oh my
Nina,
gosh.
and that's gonna be available for people in my newsletter. So if you like art and if you like spicy art, you might want to subscribe to my newsletter too.
Excellent. Let me highlight that. I started so I can go back up. I thought I did. No, I didn't. Website.
On my website, there is it's easy to do. Yes, there
newsletter.
you will have on my website a place to sign up to my newsletter.
Excellent.
Yes.
Oh, yes. And I just discovered this before we started. Leonor does her own covers.
Yes.
For which I'm insanely jealous because like I told her I couldn't tell. I could not tell. And usually I can tell when they're done by the author, because authors usually have one skill set and not the artist one.
I really love it. Yes. Yeah. It came out of an issue with diversity. So maybe I'll mention that, because I, a lot of books in my niche are gonna be photo covers, but finding photos that represented my books with main characters that were plus size, with their curves and their rolls and their dips and the I wanted them to be reflected, and I could not find pictures. Like, I can if I pay a lot of money that I did not have. So I said, you know what? Let me see if I can just illustrate it myself. And I was surprised. So I went ahead and I did that.
Nice. Amazing. And so you now have dived also into spicy depiction. I'm very, very curious about that. That's very cool.
Yes. I'd like to give people what they like, and I've been told by many people that they wanted to see that. So,
oh my gosh, Oh, the spice differences. I am most deaf not. Neither, Devin. Me neither. I mean, I meant to include it. Should I go get the Post-it note and make y'all laugh? I meant to include it when I was reviewing Slow Down, so that economy book. But it made me think of an image that was like a visual depiction of um, why developed countries' model for development is not something we can export to less developed countries and continue and not blow up the planet. And what I was envisioning was like the people on the top, the 1%, standing on a human like cheerleader pyramid with a whip at the top saying onward, going up the hill, while everyone else below them is like crawling, like to try to get up the hill. And I've made a little stick figure of drawing, and I'm like, that's as good as it gets, guys. Because I have the ideas. I can't execute. Can't execute.
It is hard. It is hard. So I am surprised by being able to do it.
That's awesome. How about let's see. Let's go back to my list of questions because I'm about to go off the rails. What about other types of reading you do? What kind of characters do you admire in literature in general? What, like, other genres that you read or types of characters that you look up to or look out for, I should say?
My favorite characters. I mean, I don't think this is going to sound very good of me, but it's the truth. I like reading the characters that I write. I want them to be.
All right.
I want them to be wise and smart and strong. And strong is a complicated word. Let's say driven and determined and trying to be good and trying to be responsible with the privilege. Those are the characters that I love to read about. Genre, I read a lot of contemporary because it's what I love the most, but I also love fantasy, and
our audience is down with that for sure.
Yes, I mean, I remember at 11 years old, I was both reading Daddy Long Legs and Lord of the Rings, right? And I read both.
Violin. There's a symphony playing behind me. Yes.
Oh yeah. This is a Lord of the Rings household. We love it. My partner and I have tattoos. Like, we are a Lord of the Rings household. Nice. So I love fantasy. I love fantasy romance as well. These days, though, I don't have much time to read. I always have a book going, but I read very slowly. And most of the time I'm reading my book because I'm editing. I read my book like 5 times, 6 times. That's where my time is going. That and my day job and house and family, all of that. So my time is very limited. But when I do pick up a book, I try to be intentional. Is it going to be diverse cast? Is it going to be of an author of color or otherwise marginalized? And then it's going to be either contemporary or fantasy. Those are my favorites.
Excellent. Okay, so can I ask you to elaborate on the strong is a loaded word? Is that because like we've got these strong female character kind of loaded definitions? Is that what's affecting it, or is it something else?
So this was actually something that I learned from a reader. I saw a reader mention this and it got me thinking. This reader said, what does a strong mean? What does nice mean? What are we truly describing when we say strong? And this reader was making a case for being specific about what we mean. And yeah, because what does strong mean? So many people in our world feel that being strong is being emotionless or being able to control yourself emotionally, or it means to endure. That no matter what happens, you're able to endure. And that's not what I mean by strength, right? And so I was like, you know what? She's totally right. Yeah. So what words am I going to use instead that are going to describe what I actually mean by that? And what I actually mean is driven and persistent and self-assured, and is going to be confident and willing to own to their mistakes and hold themselves accountable to and advocate for themselves and other people. That's what I mean by strength, And one of my favorite descriptions of strength comes is actually in yours for now, that when she, Lena is trying to be so strong, right? Be so to endure the conflict that is happening with her dad and her uncle at work, and how it's all costing her, right? And she never cries and she never crumbles as part of that strength, which is most people's understanding of strength. Until then she does, right? And she goes to the hero and they have this conversation, and it's based actually on um, my own experiences coming from a very seismic country. When we think about what a building needs to be to survive an earthquake, we imagine very strong, right? That a building has to be
Oh,
strong
wow. Yeah, yeah.
to sustain,
Rigid, if you will. Yeah.
right? We
Yeah.
imagine strength as rigid, you
Yeah.
know, and but it's not the case. You need buildings to be elastic. You
Yeah.
need buildings to move with the force and the energy being released in an earthquake, to
Mm.
release it slowly and transform this very intense energy into slow energy.
Mm.
um, and there is this conversation that I use at work all the time. I'm a therapist in my day job, and so I use this all the time, where uh, is- strength isn't about being rigid, it is about knowing when to let go and be flexible, right? And be able to kind of be held. That is a strength, especially in our world today, when we are expected to never cry, never have emotions, never be affected by things. How powerful to know this is the time when I choose to be vulnerable and share this with other person. That kind of courage, that is a strength.
Mm.
So that's all of that was behind my comment of, like, actually I'm not going to use the word strength. um,
Excellent.
yes.
Um, yeah, Devin giving an example. I love when the women save the men and then snark about it.
Yes.
That's from a fantasy author.
Yes.
Yes. And then she said, "That's not my definition of strong. It's brave, driven, when all she wants to do is take a nap." Okay, so I really resonated with your word persistent. You had 8 words there, but I think the one I picked up on is persistent, because in my experience, what I have had to learn to be is more persistent, because I grew up with the background of it being easy. So if it didn't come to me, that was not my thing, and I just would try something else, instead of
Mhm.
persisting, because that wasn't an enjoyable experience, say, being bad at something. And then I got older, and then I was like, no, I think I need to start at something as a beginner to get that experience and feel free with it.
Mhm.
It's not the end of the world if you're bad at something. You're just starting it. It's okay, being
Yes.
free to fail. So yeah, we all have different things that we gotta learn or untrain ourselves from.
Yes.
Yeah, it needs flexibility. I think there's a proverb, a reed, or the oak and the reed. I can't remember what it is, but there's something about definitely bending to not break. Yeah, jinx. Yeah. Oh man. Good stuff. Okay, so I think we're just about out of time. So are there any, you said there's an audiobook for yours for now coming out next week. There's your 4th book, yours finally
For good.
for good. Yours for good coming out November 12th. Are there other events that you maybe want to notify us about, or just where to find you in general?
Yeah. I don't think I have any events. I'm doing a giveaway for Christmas romances on my Instagram.
Oh,
So if
okay.
you like Christmas romances, and it's multi-genre too, so that might be interesting. I'm doing
Nice.
that. I'm doing a plus size giveaway as well. So again, you'll find the information either in my newsletter or my Instagram. What else is coming up? I'm about to finish this series, right? I have all of these books. This is yours for now, the book there. Second book, yours forever.
It's so cute. Look at that haircut. Oh man, you nailed it.
And oh yes, she
Oh,
has like a
it's so
shaved
cute.
side.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a marriage of convenience, and I love him. He's a golden retriever. She is a black cat, and they got married in Vegas
What's a
and don't
black cat?
remember.
What's a black cat? I'm not familiar with that trope or that.
Do you know the show Parks and Rec?
Not very
No.
well.
Um, So it is when the hero is like happy and bubbly and good-hearted and like very caring, and the heroine is like, what was wrong with you? No, I don't like this. Like, leave me
Okay.
alone. I prefer to be alone. Like, more of like a closed off kind of
Okay.
character.
So kind of like a Grumpy Sunshine a little bit.
Yes, it is kind of, but it's a specific dynamic of the type of hero being the sunshine and the type of grump in the heroine.
Okay.
It's a specific flavor of it.
Cute, cute, cute. Okay.
Yes. So
Well,
that's yours forever. And then we have yours finally, which is a brother's best friend, so where she's the billionaire and he's plus size too. And
right.
now the fourth book in the series is coming out on November 12th, which is Yours for Good. I don't have it on paperback yet because it's not finished, but it's almost done. Yeah.
I'm there too.
Yep. But it's happening. I have the cover, but I have it on ebook. And so that's happening. The audiobook is coming out on Tuesday, 4 years from now. The audiobook for Yours Forever is coming on December 31st.
So they're gonna start coming out too. That's
Yes,
awesome.
so they're just coming out now like this. And next year, I'm starting a sports romance series.
Ooh.
Yes.
Sports romance. I know some people in that neck of the woods on YouTube. Okay. All right.
Yes.
Excellent.
Yes. I'm very much looking forward to it.
Awesome. We had Devin saying, tweak it, change the plan, try a different way. Yep. Persistence. Leslie says, I appreciate Leonor's description of strength. Totally. Devin subbed. I'm not sure where, but wherever.
I'm gonna get the newsletter.
On
She wants the spicy art, I think.
Yep. Sounds like the Temperance Brendan.
Yes, the Timorous Brennan from Bones. I think maybe that's what they mean. But yeah, it would be, if I'm correct, that would be the Bones character, where Temperance Brennan, she's a more like subdued. I don't understand human connection necessarily.
Yeah.
And then he is more like bubbly and into like, yes. Although he can be a grump too, but anyway, I don't know if that's what they were talking about.
Okay, well, that sounds like a great escape. So I guess I'll be getting that one next. Thank you for providing me with more material. Yes, for book series and TV series. Nice.
Yes.
Okay, very cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on my channel. I know you have a very busy schedule and like all the books, all the audiobooks going on for sure. So I do appreciate it. And I'm so glad we got to talk a little bit about social change in your fiction and how you transform a lovely escapist happy ever after book into what you think will like move people's hearts and change people's lives, because that's the ticket.
Yes, no, that it was amazing. I love talking about all of this. I live and breathe social change as much as I can in my everyday life, both in my day job and as a writer. It's just part of me. So to get to talk about this like this, it's been amazing.
Yes. Good. Let it out.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Yep. Add another book to your TBR.
Yes.
Everyone. We'll see you again next time. It is Friday. I will be back on Sunday with a Sunday stream. So take care and happy reading. Diversify that reading list.
Yes.
Everybody.